this video, new data shows Tesla is absolutely untouchable and that the world is transitioning to electric vehicles far faster than just about anyone predicted. This bodes very well for Tesla stock investors and not exactly great for legacy automotive manufacturers and the Wall Street analysts who are still expecting more than half of all new vehicle sales to be ICE at the end of this decade, you idiots. First, let's look at some quote-unquote electric vehicle and potentially electric vehicle stocks over the last few years, starting with Tesla stock up over 900% in the last 5 years. It's been a very bumpy ride. Over the last 1 year, up a mere 18%. Year to date, down 40%. Still can't believe this. Still the bargain of the century. Please feel free to check back in 5 and 10 years time and let's see how this comment aged. Moving on to government motors. Over the last 5 years, the stock has basically done nothing. But as soon as Mary B.S. Barra started saying things and making promises that won't be fulfilled, the stock headed to the moon. Some serious brain damage out there in the stock market. From trough to peak, up about 250% in the last couple of years. On what exactly? Well, some outdated battery technology, the Ultium platform. I mean, maybe 5-7 years ago, this would have been great tech, but yeah, a little bit too late, Mary. But you led and it matters. Ford Motor Company over the last 5 years, up almost 25%, but again, very similar process. After bottoming out during the pandemic and telling us lots of things about electric vehicles, Ford stock up almost 500% before coming back a little bit to reality. For the record, I think Ford may have a chance of surviving the decade. They're doing the right things, they're saying the right things, they're miles ahead of Mary B.S. Barra and government motors, but still going to be a massive uphill battle. Stunningly, Toyota up almost 100% over the last 5 years, and again, bottoming out during the pandemic, up almost 100%. These are the same fools who still publicly say they're not sure whether consumers want electric vehicles. They're pursuing 420 different propulsion strategies, still investing in ICE. I mean, idiotic leadership, and that's an understatement. Toyota are fucked. This is embarrassing, and I cannot believe the stock's put on anything in the last 5 years. VW up almost 20% over the same period of time, and again we see a similar pattern. Pandemic, then hey, EVs, we're accelerating our plans, up over 150%, coming back to reality a little bit. BYD up a shocking 536% over the last 5 years. Very impressive. BYD making progress on EVs, so this is good to see. One of the few rational examples of an EV maker in the stock market at this point in time. Rivian since IPO down almost 80%. The bell curve is real. Lucid down considerably since IPO. Fraudstown Motors collapsing after their IPO, down over 80%. And of course, Nikola with their real truck rolling downhill with a peak to trough loss of over 90%. As I said, the bell curve really is real. All this is to say that the stock market seems to be aware that electric vehicles are the future, but also seems to be absolutely brain dead and assume that any company that says they plan to do anything at all relating to electric vehicles is automatically a winner, until months or even years later people realize, oh, production is hard, they don't have any technology, they lied to us, let's dump the stock. And now that we've laid that important foundation, let's look at the data that shows the reality of what is happening, the reality of EV adoption, the reality of the companies making the most progress and producing the most electric vehicles. This is the stuff that matters, not the stock price of X, Y, or Z company. What's actually happening with electric vehicle production and adoption. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, there's a bunch of ways you can support the channel, access exclusive content and perks. Check out the links in the pinned comment below. If you want to take it to the next level, join thousands of members on Patreon to gain exclusive access to over 100 Q&A videos, loads of exclusive content, exclusive access to my up-to-date 10-year Tesla stock price targets, and even access my Tesla valuation model at the investor support level and above. You can also pick up some Tesla, Elon, and investment themed merch in the merch store, so check out the links in the pinned comment below, and thanks for your support. So here we are over on the Clean Technica website, looking at the top 20 electric cars in the world in March 2022. Now before we get to the charts, let's have a quick read of the introductory paragraph. Quote, global plug-in vehicle registrations were up, make sure you're sitting down for this, 60% in March 2022 compared to March 2021. One more time, up 60% year over year. There were 851,000 registrations, the second best month ever, representing around 15% share of the overall auto market and 11% share of battery electric vehicles, which means that the global automotive market is entering the electric disruption zone. No shit, Sherlock. At the 832,000 units of plugless hybrids registered in March, and we have close to 30% of the overall global market having some form of electrification last month. Interestingly, however, but not surprisingly, in another note on plugless hybrids, aka one of the most idiotic ideas ideas of all time. It would have made sense if pure battery electric vehicles were not viable, but they are, so why would you complicate? I mean, just let's not even. Plugless hybrids. Last month's growth rate was just 1%, the worst since the drops during the pandemic lockdown months of April and May 2020. That could mean this year could be the peak hybrid electric vehicle year, with 2023 being the start of downhill sales for this kind of powertrain. We'll see. Toyota, take notice. Indeed. So yeah, let's just cut to the chase here. ICE vehicle sales will collapse and EV sales through the fucking roof. In March, battery electric vehicles up 81% year over year. We're growing faster than plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, up 19%. And for clarity, fully electric vehicles, again, the only things that matter, represented about 75% of all plug-in registrations in March. So now we're going to look at some charts. And before we do this, a quick note. The number of internal combustion engine vehicles being sold on Earth today is completely irrelevant. This technology is headed for extinction. Sales are already collapsing. Within a year or two, consumers will literally need to be brain dead to buy these things, okay? So they don't matter. Doesn't matter how many are being sold. It's completely irrelevant. Delete ICE vehicles from your mind. In essence, they no longer exist. Yes, obviously, technically, they still do exist, but mentally, they don't exist. They're irrelevant. They're dinosaurs. The next thing to understand is hybrid electric vehicles, same shit, completely irrelevant. They're so fucking dumb. The additional complexity, as I said earlier, if long-range battery electric vehicles weren't feasible, weren't viable, sure, hybrids would have a place. But you see, long-range compelling electric vehicles are viable, so hybrids are a complete and utter waste of fucking time. So delete them from your mind as well. The only thing to pay attention to is sales and production of pure battery electric vehicles, and that's what we'll be looking at. So the chart we're looking at here is world plug-in vehicle sales. The blue are the irrelevant things that shouldn't even be sold. They're so dumb. These are the hybrid electric vehicles. You've got to be an idiot to make or be buying these things at this point in time, so forget about those. Just focus on the green stuff. We'll zoom in a little bit, but just for the record, the top electric vehicle models sold in March 2022, number 1, Tesla Model Y. Number 2, Tesla Model 3. And we can see visually the gaping distance between third place here, which for the record is the Wuling Hongguang Mini EV, aka a death box on wheels, practically no safety features. If this collides with anything, it will lose. Now, not to say this is a terrible product, there's definitely a market out for these extremely unsafe, ultra lightweight, super low range electric vehicles. I'd never get in one of these things personally. Then again, I also value not dying in an accident. If we want to be super reasonable, we should probably forget about this vehicle as well, because it's not really competing with a Model 3 or a Model Y. Like I said, this thing's so small and tiny, you could literally put it in your handbag, almost. Again, it serves a purpose. There's a market out there for these things, but we're not really looking apples for apples. So with that in mind, let's get a little bit closer and try to understand what's happening here. So we've got Tesla's Model 3 and Model Y leading the charge. I get it, leading the charge. Fuck, that was bad, but you guys understand, right? And then the rest of the list, irrelevant. Specs, I mean, Model Y plus Model 3 combined between them, about 170,000 units, each 80 or 90,000 or so. Next best, we're looking around 11 or so thousand, then a bunch around 10,000 units sold, then an absolute joke. And I want to emphasize once again, this is world plug-in vehicle sales. The top model sold in March 2022. There is absolutely no competition. This is a literal joke. And when I say that, I literally mean that. Tesla's Model Y alone sold about as many units as this entire group, including products from Hyundai, Volkswagen, BYD, and XPeng. Kind of embarrassing unless you're Tesla. We also have some data in table form here. Same data you just saw. Model Y taking almost 11% of the global market. Model 3 almost 10%. Okay, Tesla approximately a 20% global market share in March 2022 with just 2 vehicle models. Wuling Mini here around 5.5%, and we got maybe 2 or so percent. Then we're in the ones already. No contest, not even close. Let's move on. You might be thinking, well, maybe Tesla had a fantastic March, and they certainly did, but here's the first 3 months of the year, the first quarter. And again, very important, these hybrids are a joke. They don't belong here. Let's forget about those. And how do things look now? Tesla's Model Y selling almost 170,000 vehicles, Model 3 about 130,000, and again, the Wuling Mini, chuck it in your handbag or purse, about 100,000 units. Commendable, but again, it's not really apples for apples, so let's forget about that one as well. You guys notice a trend. For the first 3 months of this year, Q1 in 2022, Tesla absolutely dominating once again. Dominating by exactly how much, you ask? Well, Tesla's Model 3 alone, second place. Important to understand. Second best-selling Tesla vehicle, second best-selling vehicle in the first 3 months of this year, about 130,000 vehicles. That means Tesla's second best-selling electric vehicle alone outsold number 4, 5, 6, and 7. Again, if we're excluding the Wuling and the joke hybrid vehicle. Just the second best seller. The impressive part, Tesla's Model Y sold about as many units as the rest of the list combined. Translation, Tesla's two vehicles, the Model 3 and the Model Y, sold about as many units in the first quarter of this year as all of the other top 10, 15 competing electric vehicles combined. Something to think about. Same info again in table form. Tesla Model Y representing about 8.5% of the global electric vehicle market. Again, this also includes plug-in hybrids. You get rid of them, it's closer to 10%. Model 3, 6.5%. Again, this is probably close to 7-8% if you get rid of the hybrid jokes. It's not long before the competing products are around 1-point-something% market share. Again, an absolute joke. Where's the so-called competition that's been coming all over itself, coming for Tesla for so long? I'm still waiting. And now, let's look at EV sales, including plug-in hybrid jokes by brand. Again, this isn't perfect data because it includes hybrids, but anyone want to take a guess at the top brand in March 2022? Yeah, that was an easy one, wasn't it? Obviously, Tesla. Let's get a little bit closer to understand what's happening here. Tesla in March, globally, almost 200,000 sales versus BYD coming in around 100,000. Tesla about twice as far ahead of second place, keeping in mind that second place BYD includes a bunch of ridiculous hybrid sales as well. It's just absolutely no contest visually. I mean, you don't even need to be able to read this stuff. Just know that Tesla's up the top. Everyone else is not up the top. And BYD sales, I mean, cut them in half because half of these are hybrids. It's just an absolute farce. Same data in table form. Tesla over 20% share, BYD around 12%, and so on and so on. It's absolutely no contest. Same info this time for the first 3 months of the year, the first quarter of 2022. Tesla out in the lead, over 300,000. BYD getting close to 300,000 again, keep in mind. A lot of hybrid sales in there as well, which really don't count. And then you got everybody else. What an absolute joke. First 3 months of 2022, table form, Tesla over 15% share, BYD around 14%, again keeping in mind the hybrids. BMW, stunningly, 3.8%, Volkswagen, 3.7%, Mercedes, 3.3%, Hyundai, less than 3%, Kia, less than 3%, Volvo, 2.5%. What a joke. We're now looking at world plug-in vehicle sales, which yes, includes hybrids, by automotive groups. First 3 months, 2022. And surprise, surprise, Tesla out in the lead, over 300,000 vehicles sold. BYD coming in a relatively close second, close to 300,000, 285. SAIC, 170,000. Volkswagen Group, just over 150,000. And Geely Volvo, just over 110,000. But again, this isn't really the stuff that matters. This is what really matters. 100% electric vehicle sales by automotive groups, aka includes a lot of sub-brands. First 3 months of 2022. Tesla in a league of their own. 310,411 vehicles sold. SAIC number 2, around 150,000. Tesla selling twice as many pure electric vehicles as second place. BYD less than 150,000. Volkswagen not even 100,000. And Hyundai Kia just over 80,000 sold. For those of you with a short memory or who don't really pay attention to Tesla's earnings reports, this was featured in their Q1 2022 earnings report. We're looking at Tesla's market share, total vehicle market, and again, ICE is completely fucking irrelevant, so let's even forget about those. But this is total market share of vehicles, broken down by region. We got US and Canada in blue, Europe in red, and China in green. Notice the trend. This is what exponential growth looks like. Early on, 1/3%, 1/4%, 0.5%, who cares? Electric vehicles, no one's buying these, whatever. Wait a minute, now it's over 1%. Wait, 1.5%? What's going on? Broken past 1.5%, it's now over 2%. What's going on? Exponential growth. This is the EV adoption growth curve. Remember we heard that figure? 11% of all new vehicles sold earlier this year, battery electric vehicles. And we heard about 60% year-over-year growth in battery electric vehicle sales. Let's do some math here. So this is a calculator. I know many of you haven't used one of these for a little while. Let's start with that 11% number. And what we're going to do is double it a couple of times. That's exponential growth. Remember earlier, 60% year-over-year growth? That's not quite a doubling, you need 100%. But maybe it takes a year and a half for 100% growth in EV sales. So all we're going to do is double 11 a few times and just see how many doublings of 11 current pure electric vehicle sales as percent of global vehicle market until we get close to 100%. So we're going to double 11 once. That's one doubling, we're at 22. Two doublings, we're at 44. Three doublings, we're at 88. We've almost hit 100% in just 3 doublings. You guys understand? No, do you really understand? Do you really understand? Now, in fairness, the last example was really rough. It was a little bit aggressive, so let's use the most recent year-over-year growth rate on EV sales, starting at 11% share of the global vehicle market, growing at 60% year-over-year. Keeping in mind, there are still automotive manufacturers today whose publicly stated goals and plans include selling electric vehicles beyond 2025, 6, 7, 8, 9, beyond 2030, all the way until 2035, and in some cases even beyond that. So, time for the big reveal. Are you ready? Bam! What are we looking at here? If global EV adoption continued at its current rate, I'm not saying it will, but if it did, never mind if it accelerates, EVs would represent more than 100% of the global vehicle market by 2027. Between you and I I think it's safe to say, even in a conservative scenario, that by 2027, at least 80% of new vehicles sold on planet Earth will be electric. Because at this point in time, consumers will literally need to be morons not to be buying these things. Cheaper to buy, cheaper to own and maintain, more efficient, they save the environment, they're safer, blah, and blah, blah, blah. This is what exponential growth looks like. When I started this channel, EV sales are making up maybe 2% or so of the global vehicle market. We're now double digits, over 10% already in just a few years' time. Remember that S-curve? That's what we're seeing the beginning of. Of course, you might argue maybe this is too aggressive as well. Let's cut it down to 50%. Where do we end up there? It's not until 2028. How about 42%? Because why not? Not until 2029 that we break that 100% threshold. What about 30%? Why the hell not? Even then, by 2031, electric vehicles making up the entire new vehicle market. Of course, if we get a little bit more aggressive and try a number like 75 or maybe even 80%, things get pretty ridiculous. If things literally double as we saw earlier, it doesn't take long at all. By mid-decade, EVs will be 100% of the new vehicle market. Now, I want to stress, once again, these are not predictions. I'm just trying to illustrate what exponential growth looks like. No one, apart from a few key exceptions like Tony Seba, Kathy Wood, and so on, nobody's getting this. No one's understanding this. Even the 160 IQ geniuses on Wall Street have no idea how quickly EV adoption is happening, nor how quickly this disruption will occur. So let's recap and summarize why this matters so much. 1. Tesla is clearly dominating the competition. I mean, second place isn't even selling half as many electric vehicles as Tesla is. And Tesla has wait times of up to a year, meaning if they were producing even more vehicles, they'd be selling even more vehicles. That's obviously a good problem to have, and one Tesla is aggressively working at solving. Berlin, Austin, a new Shanghai expansion, plus continued expansion at Fremont. Tesla's moving as fast as they possibly can. And here's the kicker. Tesla's actually increasing their production capacity faster than anyone else, meaning that over time, this gap is going to widen. Tesla will soon be selling 3 times as many electric vehicles as number 2, then 4 times, and so on. Even more important than that, however, is the pace of EV adoption. I cannot for the life of me understand how any executives at any legacy automotive manufacturers are actually dumb enough to believe they'll be selling any electric vehicles in 2030, let alone 2034, 35. But these are their publicly stated goals. Probably won't end well, aka will end in bankruptcy. You can count on it. The entire world seems to be massively underestimating how fast this transition to EVs happens. As I mentioned in the past, the transition's happening. The big bottleneck now is producing enough electric vehicles. If there were 20 million electric vehicles being produced today, if there were 40 million electric vehicles being produced today that were compelling and good value, consumers would be buying them. But there's not enough supply yet. There's major constraints on production capacity and of course sourcing materials, in particular for batteries. But as these bottlenecks are broken open, EV production will soar, so too adoption, and it will be just a few years before EVs go from 10-11% to 25 to 45 to 85% of the new global vehicle market. Everyone seems to be underestimating how quickly this transition happens. The next 3 to 5 years will be brutally painful, in fact, possibly fatal to legacy automotive manufacturers. They don't see how quickly this is happening. They're moving too slow. They should have been moving at lightning speed 5 to 7 years ago, instead of sucking their thumbs going, oh, electric vehicles, no one's going to buy them. Final point I want to make is the opportunity for intelligent investors. You see, there appears to be a gigantic disconnect between what the so-called experts think is going to happen and what's not only currently happening, but what's going to happen. That gaping void, the chasm between consensus expectations and how things will actually play out, is an enormous opportunity. I don't know how long it's going to take for the world to figure out how quickly EV adoption is and will continue to take place. But until everyone gets it, I personally believe that maybe a company like Tesla, clearly in a dominant position, already double or more the next best-selling electric vehicle producer, and moving faster and accelerating faster and expanding faster than anyone else. Until the world gets how quick the opportunity Tesla's sitting on top of will actually play out, big buying opportunity in my opinion. And of course, we're only talking about EVs. Robotaxis, autonomy, the energy, and Tesla bot, and ultimately AGI, all topics for another day, but I will point out that each of those is about an order of magnitude larger in scale, at least, than the prior opportunity. In other words, EVs, big opportunity. Robotaxi, at least another order of magnitude beyond EVs. Tesla bot, you guessed it, at least another order of magnitude or 3 beyond robotaxis / autonomy, and that's right, AGI, I mean, for fuck's fucking sake, dude. AGI, multiple orders of magnitude bigger than the bot opportunity itself, makes robotaxis and autonomy look like a joke, and EVs like the tiniest speck that ever specked, if that even makes sense. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, Don't say I didn't warn you. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to join the growing community over on Patreon with the card in the corner or the link to the pinned comment. You'll gain access to well over 100 exclusive Q&As, dozens of other exclusive pieces of content, loads of perks, plus exclusive up-to-date access to my Tesla stock price targets out over the next decade. And spoiler alert, I get considerable criticism about my Tesla stock price targets. Many people calling me a deluded Tesla fanboy, out of my mind, insane, and so on. I got a funny feeling most of this criticism is coming from people that have no idea how quickly EV adoption is taking place. So you've been warned. I'm Stephen Mark Ryan. This is Solving the Money Problem, and I love you all. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, there's a bunch of ways you can support the channel, access exclusive content and perks, and get some free stocks and crypto. Check out the links in the pinned comment below. You can also pick up some Tesla, Elon, and investment themed merch in the merch store. If you want to take it to the next level, join thousands of members on Patreon to gain exclusive access to over 100 Q&A videos, loads of exclusive content, exclusive access to my up-to-date 10-year Tesla stock price targets, and even access my Tesla valuation model at the investor support level and above. So check out the links in the pinned comment below, and thanks for your support. And if you're still watching, you're awesome. I read every single comment on this channel and I really appreciate your feedback. So if you've got any thoughts on today's video, questions, comments, or suggestions for a new video, let me know in the comments below. Check the cards on screen now to browse the merch store, join Patreon, or watch the next video.